are having a wonderful day. I'm trusting that you are having a wonderful day thus far. My name is Trina King, and I have actually been with White Cup now for 2 months. And I want to take a step back though, and I want to share a little bit about myself and how I got started. So I actually was working at IBM some years ago, and I was sharing an office with a software developer who happened to ask me to look at his work as he was going off for lunch. It was the first time I've actually, first of all, shared a room with a developer, and then secondly, to be even asked a favor such as what he asked me. And so I obliged and I said, okay, sure. He came back, I had a list of observations and some questions and such, and he indicated to me at that time hey, I don't know if you're aware or not, but there is a such thing as a person working closely with a software developer, if you will, providing feedback, being an extra set of eyes. And so actually, after I had that discussion with him, I investigated. And so that's been what I've done. I am so grateful for that particular experience. And it was a wonderful way to introduce me into what it's like to actually have a fully engaging, very open and friendly relationship and rapport with developers, right? So I'm so grateful for that. As a result of that experience and my being in quality assurance, I had worked for various industries. I have listed some of them there. And there's the telecommunications, there's credit industry, banking, healthcare, merchandising. I have been able to travel throughout the United States working for these various organizations and, just being a consultant, and I have really enjoyed that. So that's what I have been doing, and that's how I've gotten started. So let's move forward. Let's talk about the interconnectivity, the benefits, right? The niches as it pertains to quality assurance and software testing.
Are you sharing your screen?
I am. Hold on. Thank you for saying something, Amanda. Yeah, let me go back. Let me go back. All right.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. No, thank you. All right. So here we are. All right, so here we are, the interconnectivity as it pertains to quality assurance and such. Let's move forward. Quality assurance. Quality assurance is basically the systematic point of view, the way that we're actually seeing or receiving the work, the product, we're producing the product for the client, and we want to make sure that everything that we're expected to do from the customer's perspective is actually going to be captured, right? The international standards, which we like to refer to as the ISO, they actually is a group of individuals, if you will. I like to refer to them that way anyway. And it's actually key in that they are a part of the QA process, which, by the way, quality assurance actually got its start in the manufacturing sector. And as we can see, and all of us may be familiar with the fact that quality assurance has actually spread to other fields and other industries. Quality control. Quality control is not necessarily used as frequently as I think it should be. I think that oftentimes people refer to quality assurance and everything falls under that umbrella. Now, although quality assurance is very important, of course it is, more importantly, what we're looking at, and I should say as equally important, is the quality control. And the reason why is because the quality control allows us to begin to look at the functionality of software, right? And when I say look at the functionality, obviously that's executing, software testing, et cetera, which is where software testing comes into the picture. Again, there's not a lot of emphasis placed on quality control, but there should be, because software testing is a segment of quality control. All right, so let's move forward. Let's talk about the major benefits of software testing. So when we look at software testing and quality assurance, of course, the word quality, it comes to mind, and it should, because it's in the title. Quality, we want to provide quality as it pertains to anything that we're offering to the end user, to the client. Saving money. So when we talk about saving money, if there is, in this instance, if we're talking about building software, let's just say the software has a lot of glitches or is slow in performance and such, then it will cost money in the sense that now we're losing potential customers, because who's going to want to buy a product where there's not a lot of trust into it? Like there's not, as far as the feeling of using it and the desire to want to buy something that doesn't work, no one is necessarily on board with that. Improves the user experience. So if I am going through what I often do this when I'm software testing, I'm not just looking at the functionality, right? I am thinking about the end user. What are they going to experience? Because that's what it's about. They want to have an ease of use. It should be intuitive. It shouldn't be anything overly complicated. So that's a benefit QA brings to the organization. Catching problems early. QA being a part of the environment from the process, if you will, from the very beginning is very, very key. And the reason why is because we bring that value. We're the extra set of eyes, if you will, to the software development team, looking at the work because they're looking at it all day, every day, over and over. So here I come as QA/QC, and I'm offering a set of eyes. We're working together collaboratively, right? With that being said, we move on to the next benefit. Inspires the confidence in the client. A client wants to have not only a great user experience, but they want to actually have that confidence that QA has been a part of it, that it wasn't just, a happenstance. Oh, here's an app, by the way, as long as you pay for it, here you go, we'll support it if there's a problem later on. It adds value when the client can actually see that there has been attention to detail, that there's this extra bit of quality added to it all. Finally, I want to add, and of course, this is not the exhaustive list, but finally, I want to say that it actually boosts customer satisfaction, right? We want everyone to be happy, just like us as end users. When we're buying a product, we want to be happy with that particular product. What happens is when you're happy as a customer, then you spread the word. And so that enhances the customer satisfaction. It boosts the satisfaction. It's always a good thing. So verification and validation. Wow. Let me just say that these two words, they're very important, and we're going to talk about why, but I don't really hear them much. And it's almost like when I was talking about the quality control. It's a word that's not used often enough. And the reason why I'm really taking time here is because verification is something that happens at the beginning process. So I'm going to talk about the software lifecycle momentarily, but the verification is a part of it. It comes into the picture at the very beginning because we're looking at documentation and things of that nature, and we're making sure that that's where the QA comes into the picture too, because we're looking at the docs, making sure that what we're trying to do going forward actually falls into this particular jurisdiction, that we are on the right track. Verification, it actually is a process of checking whether the product is developed, if it's the right product or not. Okay, now as we move forward, validation. That is when you really get more hands-on to the software. It falls under the umbrella of quality control. Those test cases, those test scenarios and such, that's validation. So often when I'm testing and I'm going back and retesting after the developer has said they provided a fix, then I respond with, this has been validated or validated, because that means that I have tested, I've looked at it, we've looked at what the issues were or what the issue was with that particular defect. It has been addressed. That means it's been validated if I've gone through that process. That's what validation is, okay? So these two pieces are very important, very important. Verification is on the quality assurance side, which has no interaction with the software as far as like executing test cases, whereas validation is what we're talking about, executing those test cases, and we're more hands-on with the software or with the product that we're testing. Now, this survey, or this study, I want to say, was actually done online. It was actually done by Canalon, and they interviewed about 3,000 plus individuals. All of them came from different sectors. We had individuals from the C-suite, we had individuals, managers, VPs, et cetera, just all kinds of people actually responded. It was a community effort. And they represented different industries. So they were banking, they were in telecom, they represented a gamut of people, and that makes it, to me, more rich. And so the question was, what are your primary software goals in 2022? Great question, right? Well, it should be, because if we're providing a service, if we are providing a product, the expectation should be that we want the clients, we want the end user to be happy with what it is that we're providing. We want them to feel that there was thought and effort put into what it is that we're providing at the end of the day, any time of the day, as a matter of fact. So here we see that 67% of individuals that participated, these respondents, they indicated that they wanted to improve the QA processes and practices. Well, great, wonderful. That's where our heads should be. We should be thinking about constantly improving quality. 59%, they want to increase automation tests. There are so many benefits to automation. I'm going to be talking about automation momentarily, but then we look at, the fact that there was 39% that wanted to reduce technical debt, because we think about quality, again, it is continuing to want to improve. And so this was very, very telling. I do appreciate the fact that 67% wanted to improve the QA processes and practices. So now we're going to talk about ways that we can do that. How are we actually improving this particular process, right? This is where the niches come into play. Now, for now, what I am doing a lot of is manual testing. I have had exposure to the automation performance. I'll talk about those in a moment, but predominantly it's been a lot of manual testing. There is no comparison, at least the way that I feel about quality assurance software testing. It shouldn't be a comparison between the three, because all of them work together collectively for the good of the organization. But manual testing basically is where I'm sitting there and I'm writing up test cases, I'm executing the test with hands looking at, from the end user's perspective, right? And I'm looking at the feel, the flow of the software, and just, making sure that everything meets the requirements. We're still thinking about the customer, the end user, the entire way. So that is, the human interaction with the manual testing. Now, going a step further, the human interaction is also a part of the automation, because we can actually have those tests. The tests are already created, right? Because we've done them manually. And then we're just following the steps and we're recording them as we go. So within those automation tests, we have the different checkpoints. We want the application to look for different things within the functionality of the software that I am testing as QA, QC. And there's so many benefits as it pertains to automation. One of which is, let's just say with the test case that I created, it happens to be a long, cumbersome one. Well, with automation, I can actually record all those steps and then go away for lunch, go away for the evening, come back, and the results are there. It is just so fascinating. It's really cool the way that we have these particular niches. And then this third one here, it's performance testing. Now, I can say that oftentimes, performance testing doesn't necessarily get talked about a lot. I haven't heard it a lot, and I've been testing software for over 15 years, and I don't hear it a lot. However, it also brings value. Why? Because we're looking at the number of concurrent users. What happens, and how does the software respond if all of a sudden there's like 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, for whatever reason, access that website at the same time, or that application at the same time? How does the software respond? So those types of things, it looks for the validity and all those things in the app. So performance testing plays a critical role with these three. All three of them are very significant, period. Again, there is no competition between the three, but they work well and bring value to the organization. We're going to talk about now the partnerships to quality assurance testing and get a little further along. I do want to indicate that I am an advocate for teamwork, period. There's no I in team, and I do firmly believe that way. Now, we're talking about the software testing lifecycle. This is, the way I visualize this is, I am, as a software test engineer, receiving my work this way. Now, even though testing does have we're talking about the phase and it does have closure, we actually get into some of the ways that we end. So let me start by saying, it starts with requirements. We gather the requirements, all the stakeholders are there. I'm there as a tester, making sure, okay, yeah, this is something that can be verified. Remember the word verified and validated. We can verify this, we can validate this, right? So we are talking about, yes, from my perspective, it can be. This is something that can be validated. Developers, they're looking at it thinking, they're same thing. Again, all of us are at the table. It's more of us just getting together, discussing what the client's wanting, right? And then are we able to provide these things that they're requesting? Are they asking for the world? Should we give them pushback? And so requirements come from this, right? Of course, it's going to be including the information, the conversation that they have with the business analysts, and I'll talk about them momentarily. Test planning is the second out of 6 for this particular life cycle. This is where we begin, like myself, QA, we begin actually with the planning. We talked about, okay, we're going to create this particular document. So there's a test plan document that actually speaks to what's in scope. How are we actually going to test this thing? Who's going to be testing, right? It talks about the actual requirements and things of that nature. Those things are important. So we have those added. This is where it begins, right here in the test planning stage, that particular artifact. And then we have another artifact that's sometimes there as well. That's the test strategy. Okay, so later on, we'll talk more about what those two are and what they look like. Thirdly, the test case development. That's where I come in. I begin to write step-by-step test cases of how a particular functionality, the requirement is going to go at this particular step. Well, not the requirement is going to go, but how I'm going to test the requirement. And here at this particular step, where we have the test case development, I began to utilize the matrix, the requirements matrix. So we are tying in the actual requirement to a scenario, to a test case. So that traceability matrix, the requirement traceability matrix is something that's very critical, and it comes into play at this third step. Fourthly, the test environment setup. It does not necessarily include quality assurance software testers, me setting up my own testing environment. It does not. Now, granted, there could be exceptions that depends upon the culture of the organization, and such. But as far as my experience, that's never happened. The expectation with the test environment is to make sure the test data is there. The environment actually has what it needs. I have all of my test accounts, obviously as a part of test data, email addresses and such. And then I make sure that I do a quick sanity check. The sanity check just makes sure that the software can handle robust or anything that comes after, right? Because I'm just making sure it's stable enough to receive anything else that may be complex, okay? So that's the test environment setup. Then once all that is done, I'm now ready to begin executing the tests, okay? I execute them based upon clearly the actual requirements. Now, I do want to say, and oftentimes there are such thing as regression tests. Well, regression tests happen in every phase. What I'm saying though is, although the requirements definitely takes precedence, we do want to make sure that we execute those regression tests. They happen here. While I'm executing tests, I report the findings. If there are defects, I go, but the developers, we play volleyball, right? We pass back and forth until it is determined by me in the test environment that this defect has actually been cleared, if you will, to move ahead, or cleared to go to the done pile, if you will. Like, I have retested it, it has now been validated, okay? And finally, we have the test closure. Here at this particular phase is where we go back and we look at things that we could do better. What do we learn from this experience, right? From this particular phase. We have our reports, that defect reports, and any other reports that we might want to add and share along the organization. And that's where this happens. So yes, there is 6 phases within this particular life cycle. Now, with that, let's talk about the software models. Software models, in my mind, actually is just a way to get to the end result. Let's just get what the customer needs. Let's get the work, let's do the work, let's make sure they're happy, and which one of these methods we want to employ is what we use to make sure that we get it done. Okay, so that's one thing I feel at a fundamental level that they all have in common. With that being said, there are over 50. I promise you I won't discuss all 50. However, I will start with the spiral. The spiral model, as you see, has the 4 that it goes through, and each one of those iterations actually represents a spiral. And it is quick, it's quick process of getting the code out, etc. But it's one that's very common, and it's risk-based heavy, okay, with this particular one. Secondly, code and fix. It's just coding, the developer codes. Sometimes there's not requirement set. They just jump in, the developers jump in, do the work, and they are working, and they make sure, and they go back to the client. Okay, we're coding, we fix, and we code, and they fix along the way. And it's a fast process, if you will, because that's what's happening in this particular software model. The waterfall model, that's one that I have been exposed to a lot. I find that a lot of organizations do use the waterfall model. One thing about the waterfall model that is well, first of all, it is one of the oldest ones that's been around, right? And with the waterfall model, though, it is one that requires, it's contingent upon, or it's dependent rather, upon the initial or the phase that came prior to it. So it's heavy, it has a heavy dependency on the prior area, if you will. And there's a meeting that has to be had after each one of these particular steps, right? So you don't just move from requirements and just go on and now we're testing. We are testing, we're stopping to make sure, hey, does this still make sense to us? Do we still want to continue in this direction? Are we good? All thumbs a go, let's move ahead. But I will say this, waterfall does take the longest when it comes to getting a project out the door. It happens to be the longest as far as I can tell. And then it brings us to Agile, which is what we employ here. This is what we utilize. Specifically, here we're looking at the Kanban, and there is actually 2 in Agile. There's the Scrum and there's the Kanban. And I have basically learned and been exposed to the fact that with Kanban, well, with Agile period, you are breaking up rather the workload of what needs to be done into smaller chunks, unlike waterfall, where you may get this big lump sum of everything and hey, let's work on all of it at the same time. With Agile, we have the smaller pieces and we can hold each other more accountable. Kanban is in your face with regards to a visual aspect of what needs to be done, right? You see what needs to be done and you hold yourself accountable. So we go from the backlog, which is, these are all the things that should be done, to a list of what we're working on, what to do. We decide on what we're going to be doing out of this list of things. Then we move over to, this is ongoing. So now this is what we're currently working on. And then once that task is done, then obviously we're moving on to pretty much being done, right? And then that becomes archived. So it just keeps you accountable. And you can liken it to actually doing work at home. You know, any of your chores at home, you apply the same methodology. It keeps you honest. It makes sure that you know that you're doing whatever task it was you had before you. Now, on that note, I want to talk about the partnerships. These, based on my experience, are very important partnerships, right? Because even though at the beginning of a project, you have all the stakeholders in the meeting and all of this, you know, it's a lot of people, then it begins to dwindle down. And as it dwindles down, then I find that I am with these particular individuals. I have the business analyst or the product team. These individuals are important because they're always in communication with the client. They know exactly what the client wants and what the client needs, right? So if I have a question, if there's something going on, I need a demonstration, hey, is this right? I can go to that person. So it's a great relationship. I love the fact that we can collaborate, and it's good to have an open door policy there as well, right? So let's talk about the next important person to QA, the technical documentation. They write up all this technical stuff, you know, the diagrams of the charts, so these fancy documentation, you know, that they create. And it helps because if I want to see, okay, wait a minute, now before I apply this particular step, now what should happen and what is over here? Like, especially while I'm creating my test case and I want to get a little bit more detail, then those documentations that's created by that team actually come in very handy. So very useful there. And then finally, the software developers. I must say that I'm always in communication throughout my entire career. The developers are people that I am always in communication with, us as software testers. We have to be, because we're looking at the work that they're performing. We are their extra eyes. We're working together as a collaborative effort. And I want to be able to come to you. I want to be able to talk to you. So these are important relationships, period, to quality assurance. Now, on that note, let's talk about some common software testing myths. This one here was, I have to say, it was a pet peeve of mine. I didn't like this whole thing about testers shouldn't necessarily interact with developers, but it's a real thing. It really is real, and I don't understand it, but it does exist nonetheless. I want to say that developers shouldn't be sequestered. I have been in environments where I had to have a mediator to go talk to, or to be able to get a communication to a developer over something that I had a question. Well, how are you going to communicate for me effectively what I experienced? I like to speak for myself to the developer. And so I just want to say that it just is something that's not good in any culture. We should be able to communicate with each other, break down the barrier, and let's just get the work done, period. Okay, now let's talk about the fact that quality assurance and software developers, we're two different teams. We really are. This is certainly a myth. We all report up to the project manager. The business analyst, the technical architect, the developers and testers, we report up to the project manager. I don't report to software developer. They are not my direct report, okay? So as you can see, we have the test manager. We have a little hierarchy here for the testers. We have the test manager that can be in that umbrella, under that umbrella, test leaders and testers, right? However, we do work collectively together. We should, but we're two different teams. And that has to be understood. Why? Because quality assurance, quality control, we bring value to an organization. We don't want to be covered up, expose us, because we bring value, okay? And everyone should acknowledge that and appreciate it, you know, because we all should appreciate each other. So that's how I feel about that. And as we move forward, let's talk about this thing, which was also a pet peeve of mine. If it doesn't work in production, guess what? It's your fault. Well, who likes to have blame placed on them for any reason? No one likes the way that feels, especially if we're saying we're working together. Well, then let's demonstrate that we're actually working together. If there is an issue, then let's discuss that issue. Let's resolve the issue and let's move ahead. So this is one thing that I want to say as pertains to that. First of all, there is no such thing as 100% bug-free of anything. And all of us are living testaments to that, right? So then why point the finger and place blame? Let's not do that. So if I find an error or defect within software, trust and believe I'm not passing judgment. That's not what we do as quality assurance, quality control software testers. We don't do that, and we shouldn't do that. Placing blame, not good. Instead, what we do, we find the issue, we report it, it's fixed, we go back again. You know, I said using that wall, we're talking about volleying over. Even though it's not a wall anymore, we're actually playing volleyball, if you will, and the defect happens to be the proverbial wall that we're talking about, right? We're validating and we forge ahead. That's what we do, okay? Let's take a quick look back. How did quality assurance software testing come to be? And this is kind of cute to me, that Grace Murray actually found a moth within her machine. And because of that, she actually coined the term bug or debugging. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's actually what happened. I mean, she used the term to explain exactly what it is. I mean, you know, her explanation or experience for this particular term. And I think that is just so cute. But anyway, and then here we have the testing phase, which was actually recognized as an integral phase for the product development. So software testing was beginning to take shape and people were beginning to see value in having us on board the team, right? So that's a good thing. Okay, so I have to, as we bring this to a close, I have to actually address just a few notable defects, okay? Just a few. This Intel Pentium one was the first one that went worldwide. Now, although it was like, I think the number was like 1 in a million, or it was just rarity the way that you will come across this era. But the fact of the matter is that because of it, it was the first hardware issue that actually it hit the headlines worldwide. And when we talk about earlier, you remember I mentioned the slide about the benefits of QA, right? We talk about saving the company money. Well, guess how much money this particular bug cost? upwards of $475 million, right? Because everybody wanted a replacement. So we talk about trying to get in there early to save the company money. And, this is just one of the examples of defects that actually occur in real life. The Y2K bug was another one. It was such a scare. Everyone was just in a panic. Oh my God, the clock is not going to work anymore. Things are no longer going to work anymore. Things are going to be different. What is going to happen? The end of the world is coming. And as we know, for those of us that were living during that time, or old enough to remember, I should say, it nothing really, transformative took place other than the fact that, yeah, we went from 2-digit year to the 4-digit year, but it cost the US $100 billion. That's what's estimated. Why? Because they were all of the contingency. Everybody's planning for the worst. And so that's how much money was spent because of this Y2K concern. And it, by the way, was a hardware and software concern. And then the Prius in 2014 doing a recall of 1.9 million. That's a lot. I can't imagine driving along and my car suddenly stops. But guess what? In the event that it does, or in the event that it did, in this case, for those individuals who own that Prius, I know that they were grateful for the fact that, hey, it's been recalled, because maybe the one or two or the handful of people that have had that experience and reported it actually wound up saving lives of so many others, right? So that's a good thing. Ultimately, you all, the reality is this: quality assurance actually is a bridge between the users and software developers. We are, and we're always thinking about the end user, right? If they're using this particular software, whatever it is that we're offering to the public, we want to make sure that it has the quality, that they're going to be happy at the end of the day. And as we've seen, defects, they exist within the products. We all have mobile apps. We all have a mobile phone. We are online, right? We have the updates, upgrades, things constantly happening, enhancements. That's a part of it. It's an inherent part of providing quality. So we see organizations are always working to improve quality. It never stops, it's continuous. So again, although there is no such thing as things being 100% defect free, what is reality is that we should constantly work towards that goal, right? We want to make sure that we do our best from the beginning to the very end to make sure that we provide quality. Because what happens is defects, yeah, they should be found, but when they're found, they should be documented, they should be resolved without judgment, and they should be fixed, and then we move on, right? Put into production, making sure everybody's happy. Because teamwork most certainly makes the dream work. There is no I in team, and the egos should be checked at the door, because we all are working to provide quality for this particular product that we're producing and providing to the client. And so I do want to end by saying that quality needs to be consistently improved, but it is just as necessary to make sure it never deteriorates. So we want to have quality from the beginning to the very end, right? Just giving out all. So I do want to say this. There's a surprise giveaway. So now that we're at the end, there is a surprise giveaway. And I want to ask that you actually respond, okay, to me verbally. And the reason why is because it's just my request. So here's what I want to ask. And I want you to answer. The first person that actually responds, you win. Now, what you win, I'm not going to tell you, but you will win. All right, so here's the question. And I want you to participate, please. The question is, in one of the slides, I actually indicated to you, I provided the software testing lifecycle. Can anyone tell me how many steps are actually, you don't have to name them, but could you tell me how many steps are in the software testing lifecycle? How many phases?
5.
4.
5.
6.
5.
Who said 6?
Not
6
me.
is the answer. Who is that?
I think that was
All
me.
right, so here's on the next slide, the person that said 6, I'm sorry, my background has just gotten loud for whatever reason, but the person that responded with 6, could you say your name again?
Ross.
So I want you to look at my next slide. There's going to be some sound effects, but I want you to email me, Ross, please, right now or today, and congratulations. Okay. All right, you all. So here are my references, and It concludes the presentation. Do you have any questions? And thank you.
Thank you, Trina. This was great.
Yeah, super awesome.
It's such
Thank
an
you.
important part, I think, for us, like maturing as an organization to actually not only bring in QA with Trina, but to understand it better. Because it is a shift from what we've done previously as like smaller kind of separate companies. And now as we're maturing as an organization, I just think it's really important for us to understand what that looks like and how that part of the business is running. So this is super great. Thank you, Trina.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Kristen.
So Trina, I'm Stephanie. I don't think we've actually been on any calls together. I'm in the marketing team, and so thank you for. I know you jumped in the middle of White Cup CRM. Is that correct? Yeah. So
Yes.
how was that experience for you from a QA standpoint? Like, because we acquired that technology. So like, how was your experience with that?
You know what, Stephanie, it was not unusual because I've been doing it for so long. I've been exposed to different environments, and it was quick, meaning it was fast paced. Kept me on my toes, but it was good though. It wasn't bad at all. And oddly enough, in conclusion, it wasn't stressful. I thought it would be, but it really wasn't.
Good. Awesome. Well, we're super fortunate to have you on the team for sure.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I'm going to jump in really quickly here because Trina's being a little bit modest in that you're right, Steph. We did bring her in and throw her on White Cup CRM. And then we gave her the fun thing of saying, all right, we're driving to a deadline. And we also want you to start thinking about how you're going to stand up the QA organization within White Cup at the same time. So it was just amazing to watch her immediately start reaching out to our partners sort of across the aisle, reaching out and being an integral part of discussions with Kristen and the folks over in support. And just it's been really cool to watch her just grab a hold of this whole process and delivering really solid results at the same time while working with this brand new team as well for White Cup CRM. So it's just been an absolute fantastic gift to have her both on the dev side to help us look at what we're doing better, and also just as White Cup's organization as a whole. So Trina, I just wanted to give a special shout out to you. You've been amazing.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. And I have to say ditto real quickly. It's because of you, the partnership that I have with you and the ease of use in talking with you. I'm sorry, I won't belabor the point. I know how you feel about that, but I just have to give you your flowers. You are freaking amazing. And I thank you for being so open and easy to talk to, and that you check your ego. You don't seem to have one. And I love that about you. Thank you, Amanda.
Moving on, other questions?
You made Amanda blush, so we can move on.
Wait till I meet you face to face, Amanda.
I love it. Other questions for Trina? Well, I have a question I think maybe my support organization is wondering, which is we've seen already some benefits, obviously, with this with White Cup CRM, which is great. Do we have plans in the future? Obviously, you're one person today, so that's a limitation of time in the day. But do we have plans in the future to expand out QA to some of our other products as well?
Well, I'm going to answer yes. I think Amanda could probably speak more to this than me since she's the manager, but I would venture to say yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah, our next partnership is with the MITS team. In the work that they're doing, both standalone and in their integration work with White Cup CRM. And then more forward looking, we have two other great products that have not had this level of care given to that, to to that side of things for quite some time. Our developers have done a great job trying to QA, trying to do code review for each other, but it's a lot of work to do. So we're hoping to expand this QA org so that we can get some really good, robust QA out to both the Sherpa team and the Tour de Force team, so that we can really, really shore up some quality there as well.
I have a question, Christian, real quickly. In the beginning, the little mishap that occurred, how much time did we lose on the recording in the beginning? Do you know?
Oh, not any at all. So maybe like your first hello. So we should be good with the recording. Yep.
Okay, so with the screen share, how much did we miss of that?
Oh, it was a few minutes, but yeah, I think we're pretty solid. Yep.
Okay, okay. Darn it. Okay.
All good, all good.
All right, well, please, I guess if there are any other questions, please ask them now. And if not, I bid you all adieu and have a great rest of the day.
Awesome. Thanks, Trina.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You're welcome.
All right. Looks like people are logging off. So we'll go ahead and kill it here. Thanks so much,
Okay.
Trina.
You're welcome, Kristen. Talk to you later.